What's up guys, Nate here from Protoculture and Shadow Chronicles. Welcome back to another Sonic Academy how to use video. This week we got a brand new offering from Plugin Alliance. It's their brand new VST instrument synthesizer. This is from Knif Audio and it's called the Knifonium. Let's check this out. Right, here we go guys. This is the Knifonium. It's developed by Brainworks, basically the second synth in their lineup after the BX Oberhausen. I would go and check out the video that I did for Sonic Academy on their website or on the YouTube channel for the overview of Oberhausen. There's quite a few similarities between the two. Just in the top panel here, we're going to quickly look at that, but I'm not going to go into too much detail with that. You've got your preset management, just like the Oberhausen synth. And then you can enable the top panel, which is going to give you access to your effects and your arpeggiator. The new addition to the arpeggiator is the panning, the auto panning per note. And you also have in the effects section, there's a few new offerings as well. The wave folder, for example. We're not going to get into that in too much detail though. Let's just quickly check out the options section before diving into the main controls of the synth. It's monophonic traditionally, the hardware, but we can actually use this in a polyphonic mode up to 8 voices. And you can also enable unison. And we have TMT modeling technology or tolerance modeling technology on each of the voices, which can be left on or disabled. This is the same as their consoles from Plugin Alliance that emulate tolerances in each voice and they make them slightly different from voice to voice. The velocity mode, we'll quickly just cover that. That is a single one because it's when you're running in monophonic. If you play a soft note, all your concurrent voices are going to be soft notes as well. They have a single velocity from the first note that you hit. Multi, for example, if you hit a soft note, each note after that is going to have its own individual velocity amount. After touch, you have a few destinations here and then some pictures of some cool looking tubes, which we're going to come to now. So let's jump into the main synth now. The Knifonium, to be honest, I got this synth a while back. I'd never actually heard of the original one. We can actually take a look at a picture of the hardware here. And it is a 26 tube monophonic synthesizer with 2 oscillators and a 4th order or 24 dB filter. It's quite nuts. They produce a small handful of these every year, a year or two. They sell for about $16,000 for the synth. And yeah, it doesn't quite sound like anything else. It's quite a quite out there original sounding synth with a huge sound to it. Now I mentioned the tubes, so before we kind of look at some of the details of the synth here, one thing that you have to bear in mind is that every single stage in the synth has tubes that can be overdriven in it. So gain staging within the synth is incredibly important to how your sound is going to come out. If you're looking for cleaner sounds, you need to make sure that you are gain staging correctly in the mixer as well as the output stage, and then adjusting the output. You have quite a wide range, up to 20 dBs on the output for the master out of the plugin. If we just load up a sine wave, listen to what you can do with just a little bit of tweaking on the volume. So we'll take the VCO1 for example, and that's just within the mixer, and the mixer mixing between different waves as well will generate quite different sounds between the waveforms as well. It does act in quite a weird way because of all the tubes. So you can hear the difference of just overdriving it there at that stage. Then you also have selectable tubes on the output, a triode, a pentode, and a saturated mode. You can hear some differences there. If we adjust the master volume on the synth here, not this top one, we'd rather bring it down there. So that's just a sine wave. You can hear how much saturation is going on inside of this as you overdrive the tubes inside of the synth. So you do need to be aware of how you are gain staging inside of this plugin. Let's try and run through as much as what we can with this now as well. We're going to jump into the Vcos first. You've got two of them. They're slightly different. The first one, you've got obviously a saw, triangle, square, or pulse wave, and a sine wave. You're only going to have the pulse wave on VCO 1. VCO 2, you've only got a saw, a triangle, and a sine. But there's some nice interaction between the two oscillators as well. You can use VCO 2 as a source for FM on VCO 1. We'll take a listen to that quickly. We'll enable the FM. So there you have the FM modulation going from VCO 2 to VCO 1. You also have a sync mode for VCO 1. You can sync it to VCO 2. So if we bring up VCO 2 as well, let's pull up our VCO 1, turn the sync on. We'll use some modulation. So you can hear the sync occurring on VCO 1 now. We'll disable that again. You do have some settings here for the sync as well. These are switches. You can use the mod wheel to switch it on and off. You have a number of different mod sources for the pitch as well as the pulse width. As I said, VCO 1 has got pulse width modulation on its pulse wave. Let's just bring that back down again. So you can adjust the width of the pulse wave, and that can be assigned anywhere you see these switches is basically assignments to modulation. Here you can select an LFO, for example. Keyboard tracking envelope, the mod envelope, or an external input as well, which we're going to come to in a sec. So just with regards to the modulation, the pitch modulation you can find here. Once again, just like the pulse width modulation, you can just enable, you have a negative amount for envelope, LFO, aftertouch, or an external signal once again. And we've seen how the envelope modulates the pitch. In this case, you can turn up the mod amount. Lastly, this is a new feature. A lot of the little yellow screws that you're going to see here are new features inside of the plugin version. You have a stereo spread for each of the oscillators as well, which allows you to split them into the stereo domain, which is quite a nice effect as well. We'll take a listen to that, especially when mixing one mono source with a stereo one. This also works really well with the unison mode. Great, so that covers our oscillators for us. Let's move into the filter section now. 24 dB filter. Basically, these little screws here again are just to basically calibrate the filter. You have a range setting and a sort of center point for the filter. Let's just take a listen to the resonance on this. You can assign keyboard tracking to the filter. And obviously driving this hard through the output gives you some really nice distortion tones as well. The filter, you have some modulation parameters here. Again, you can assign this to an LFO, aftertouch, external 1 and 2, and then the envelope as well, the mod envelope here, we can assign a filter parameter to that now. There we go. Now just above the filter parameter as well, we've looked at the mixer. You can see here we have a ring mod source and a noise source as well, which can also be brought in. The ring mod we're going to take a look at down here in just a sec. Let's cover the LFO quickly. You've got 3 different modes that the LFO can run in, or 4 actually, slow, medium, and fast. You can almost get into audible rates with the fast setting. So you can almost use this as sort of like another FM source for the oscillators. If we set that to LFO. Not quite as high as you want to be for FM, but you get some nice sort of crunchy modulation with that as well. You have some settings along the bottom of the LFO as well. You can adjust these settings with a mod wheel as well by enabling the mod wheel modulation on with these. And then you also have a keyboard trigger mode at the bottom, which basically governs how the LFO triggers at any given time. So let's take a look at the ring modulation section here. You have a couple of settings to assign inputs and carrier signals for the ring mod. Let's just turn down the saw. We now have oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 interacting with one another. We'll take a listen to that by turning up the ring mod in the mixer here. Next to the ring mod section, we've got this external 1 and 2. Now, you can actually bring in external CV signals into Knifonium. So this is not, it's not going to be ideal sending in just a sidechained audio. You can do that, but the signal is quite rough. Ideally, you want CV. So you can essentially hook up an external modular system into this, or something like a reactor or voltage modular. If you send an output CV from any of those applications, you can actually send in an external LFO, for example, or if you were to send in a sine wave from a external synthesizer, you can actually route that into this and use these as modulation sources inside of Knifonium as well, which is a really nice feature, being able to link that to other systems inside your DAW or even hardware systems as well. We have an SNH section here as well. Typically you use the noise. You can select filter or any of the gate or the LFO, for example, to trigger it. So gate would be every time you hit a key, you'll sample a new section from the noise, for example. I'm going to have this assigned to the filter so we can just check that out. Let's set our filter down here. If we turn up the mod amount, we have the SNH now taking its sampling from the noise generator via the LFO. And that's routing the SNH to the filter modulation now. Let's check out the last few little things here. We've got a boost mode for the VCA, which allows you to drive even more through the tubes. The feedback, obviously you have a feedback loop that you can assign here from oscillator 1. You can route the feedback into oscillator 1, into oscillator 2, or into the filter, or just into the amplifier. You'll be able to hear that. That's the feedback from the filter. And the VCA envelope over here, we didn't cover the actual envelopes for the mod envelope here, so we've got a few extra settings as well. You can disable the velocity sensitivity for it. You can have a half setting, velocity on or velocity off. The gate, you can actually disable the gate setting completely for the envelopes. Then we have a time multiplier as well, so if we just check that out, the standard would be like that. If we set the time multiplier up, the release is now going to be quite a bit longer, 5 times longer to be exact. So that pretty much covers a lot of the controls for the synth. You'll find that it's quite unpredictable a lot of the time, which is part of the beauty of this thing. On the surface, it seems like it's quite easy to program, like something like a mini Moog, for example. But because of all the tubes and gain staging and some rather wacky routing in this, you get quite different and very unpredictable results, which is really, really cool. We'll take a look at some of the presets just so you can kind of get a feel as to what this can do. Let's jump into the preset management. I had the privilege of doing a few presets for the factory library. Let's take a listen to some of these. Beautiful overdrive happening in that patch. One of the unison sounds. So there you have it. That is the Knifonium from Brainworks. Highly recommend you go and check this one out. Like I said, it is quite a weird one, this, but very rewarding once you kind of get used to it. It doesn't sound like anything else out there on the market at the moment. If you have a subscription from Plugin Alliance, you shall find that in your account. I highly recommend you do that. Otherwise, go check out the demo and see what you think. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will catch you guys soon right here at Sonic Academy. Cheers.
Thanks everybody for watching, commenting and indeed liking. We really do appreciate all the support we get here on our Sonic Academy YouTube channel. So if you found this video super useful, please, we'd love you to hit the subscribe button. We update the YouTube channel every week with new content. And if you want to watch some more relevant content, just click on the videos beside me.